Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to another film review. Today's film review is for the 2020 horror thriller Alone, a film that is directed by Johnny Martin and it stars Tyler Posey, Summer Spiro and Donald Sutherland. Now this film focuses on Tyler Posey's character Aidan, who is alone in his apartment when an outbreak hits. And this outbreak essentially turns people into a form of zombie, I suppose. Let's just go with that. They're not strictly speaking zombies. They're more a cross between a traditional zombie, because they like eating flesh and things like that, crossed with the 28 Days Later version of zombies. They've still got some voice. They can still tap into some of the things they used to do when they were not zombies. They scream, they run, that sort of thing. So they are the zombies at the end of the day. So this outbreak hits and he is left alone in his apartment for a long period of time. He starts losing hope. He starts his mental health massively deteriorates. He's running out of food and water, and he's got to try and stay alive. However, well into his self-imposed situ in his apartment, he notices that somebody across the way is in a similar position to him, and he is desperate to reconnect with any form of humanity. Right, that's the best I can describe this film without giving any real spoilers away here. What is my thoughts on Alone? Now, I must admit I was hesitant initially to watch this because, let's be honest, zombie movies, do we really need any more at this point? It's not a genre that I'm completely enamoured with, because the market is swamped with zombie movies. I've got another one on my watch list that I'm going to watch. Well, it's like an outbreak film. They're a dime a dozen. And you've got to be pretty special to stand out in this market. So I wasn't expecting an awful lot from this film. However, I was quite pleasantly surprised with this film. I went in it with low expectations and I came out reasonably entertained, I suppose is the best way to describe it. Don't get me wrong, it's not a barnstormer or anything like that, but it has some good moments in it. It has some good tense moments in it. Like situational moments, because it's set basically in this apartment block, and he's trying to wait it out. And I think the first half an hour of this film, maybe a little bit longer, drags, and I was struggling with it because initially I didn't feel like Tyler Posey was a strong enough actor to pull this kind of performance off with him just on screen. And I started looking at the faults of the film at that point, and I started tearing it, pulling at threads. When I get bored watching a film and I'm not really enjoying it, I start pulling at threads, and I started noticing things like, well, he's in there for 40 plus days. What single man fills has a fridge and a freezer full of food? He's a young single man, he's handsome. In the beginning of the film, you see a woman in his bed who's not his girlfriend, so he obviously has a lot of one-night stands. So he obviously went out a lot and socialised. So he wouldn't have had nothing hardly in his apartment, I'm guessing. However, he could survive 40 plus days with everything he's got in his apartment, food, water, all this kind of stuff, and the ability to charge all his devices consistently throughout all this, even when he lost the power, it would seem. So I started pulling at these threads, and and I was getting bored watching it and thinking, oh, this isn't very good. And then when he started venturing out of his apartment when he had to, and when it started ramping up the pace of the film, it improved dramatically, I think, this film. And especially when he started connecting with his neighbour across the way. They start talking by using writing on signs and holding it up to the window initially. Then they find walkie-talkies, and it's a slow process where they actually physically connect. And I don't mean that in a sexual way, and I mean in an emotional way. And that really, really helped the film. I think it brought a tenderness to the film. A little bit of romance that worked. You believed that they really wanted to connect because they'd been alone for so long, the pair of them. And then soon after that, we meet Donald Sutherland, who appears in the film as another survivor. And again, he lifts the film. It's Donald Sutherland. He's going to lift any film that he's in. He's one of the best actors, certainly that I've ever seen. And he's great in the film. He's not in it a huge amount of time, maybe 10 minutes, something like that, maybe a little bit more. But he really helps lift the film. And the last 20 minutes of this film, I think, was very, very good. Very fast paced, very tense. A lot riding on it. And I quite enjoyed it for the most part. So it made me forget the dull initial half an hour to some degree. I thought the effects as well were okay for these screaming zombies, I suppose. They looked pretty impressive. Nothing overly special. I'm not saying they had a huge budget, this film, but it's a polished film. It's not really low budget or anything. So the effects were okay, and there were some good scenes as well where they're so desperate to get to you, they'll be diving off balconies trying to get to you and things like that. And I thought that was that showed another side of these zombies, that they're really desperate to get hold of you. So yeah, I was much more impressed with this film than I expected to be. So yeah, it almost as well gave a fresh perspective on the I Am Legend film, you know, the Charlton Heston, Will Smith films, and based on the famous book. It reminded me a little bit of that as well. So I think it's actually worth checking out, this one. If you're a fan of the zombie genre, and you like, you know, to see how films try and make an attempt to do something different with it, you could do far worse than this. Put it this way, I've watched a lot of zombie films, and I've seen a lot of really bad zombie films, and this is not in that bracket. It's certainly watchable, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Like I say, it's not a barnstormer. It's watchable. It's one that'll pass the time, but it's not one that you will watch and think, yeah, that's one of the best zombie films I've ever seen. It's nothing like that, but it's quite an entertaining watch. So yeah, that's my review for Alone. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and of course I will be back on the channel with more content very, very soon.